I'm Matt Landau from VRMB.com, and this is Unlocked, Season 7, Unglamorous. This episode's brought to you by Point Central, the leaders in smart home automation, and Breezeway, a property care and operations platform. Theo Kracke is what I call a vacation rental avenger. It's the term I use for owners and managers who are smart, who've built successful businesses, but who are in danger of unfair regulation shutting down their livelihood. And so they stand up, sometimes with fellow owners and managers, sometimes entirely on their own, and fight for what they believe in. In Theo's case, he sued the city of Santa Barbara for his right to short-term rent, and he won. Not only did he win, the precedent of his win positively impacts all vacation rentals in California's coastal region. In this interview, Theo explains how he fought back, how he funded and built a legal team and a case, and ultimately, how he sued the city of Santa Barbara successfully. He references the website in the interview, but his website, strsantabarbara.org, has all the reference materials. And if you feel like you've benefited from Theo's honey badger-style persistence, then you can donate to his group's efforts there too. Okay, let's go. What's up?
Not a mucho, just loving the 110-degree weather in Phoenix, Arizona.
Every time I walk out my door, I feel like I'm in a sauna.
Yeah, exactly. It's brutal.
Where are we? What are we doing here?
We are talking about pushing back against short-term vacation rental, irrational prohibition of short-term vacation rentals in the Phoenician Resort in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona.
And we are here surrounded by probably like 400 or 500 other owners and managers at the conference, at the Streamline conference. And it feels good to be around a bunch of people who are nerds like us.
Indeed.
And you, Theo, I'd like to begin with the very last statement that we're going to end up arriving at. You won a court case, which is Kracke versus the state of California.
The city of Santa Barbara.
The city of Santa Barbara. And what did that define?
That defined that cities cannot violate the California Coastal Act in their attempt to prohibit short-term vacation rentals.
And this is precedent now.
Yes.
This is something that can be used elsewhere.
Up and down the whole state of California, yep, when individuals are fighting back in violations of the Coastal Act, which is what the city of Santa Barbara did.
All right, so for our listeners, that's the cliffhanger. We're going to now backtrack to how we got there. You have a vacation rental company.
I do.
In Santa Barbara.
Yep.
Tell us about it. How many properties?
Yeah, Paradise Retreats, world-class vacation rentals, was founded 15 years ago by my wife and I, my daughter's bedroom, which she also slept in, so we stopped working while she napped. And so we started that. She had a real estate background. I'm an entrepreneur, never really had a real job. And I had sold a sportswear business 3 years earlier, and I was ready for something new, and saw the need for this in our town of Santa Barbara, professional management. And so just started assessing the business, and one of my strengths was standard operating procedures and structure and systems. And so I realized that this industry could really use that, especially in Santa Barbara. And so I just offered that out, found the right angles to market to the right people, and within 3 years we became the largest vacation rental management company in Santa Barbara. And we currently have about 100 homes that we manage. And they're all really high-end luxury homes. They go from anywhere from $500 a night to $3,000 a night kind of properties. And it's a beautiful destination. It's a real target for the wealthy. They go to Aspen, they go to Santa Barbara, they go to Mauna Kea in Hawaii. And so we've earned the respect. Our kind of pitch to the realtors that promote us is that we're in the business to make them look good for referring us. So we've just taken a real professional attitude towards the business and really just try to, from guest to owner, try to make everybody really satisfied with how we operate.
So you've built up until that point a successful, a profitable, and what you thought was a sustainable vacation rental business. Mm-hmm. We're not going to go too deep into that because that's just one of the great things that you have achieved. Get us to the point at which all of that was suddenly threatened with potentially unfair regulation.
There became a big media push about the effect of Airbnb on the affordable housing market across the country, really, but in particular in California. a study, an unfounded study out of LA from a housing advocacy group that didn't really cite correct evidence, became kind of the mantra for affordable housing advocates up and down the state. And our city council got a hold of that with their through our housing advocacy SAR in Santa Barbara, and just jumped on it. And they've got themselves convinced that short-term rentals were dramatically affecting the supply of affordable housing in the city of Santa Barbara, when it was only 1.7% of the housing stock in Santa Barbara County. So anyway, that's a whole different thing. But anyways, they just ran with that, and to make a very long story short, within about a year, prohibited all short-term rentals in the city of Santa Barbara. Shut down the business.
Did you ever have an idea that that could happen?
Yes, I did. I was, they had a regulation that made sure that you could get a business license, you could collect and remit TOT, but you could be shut down if a neighbor complained about the noise issues of your property. And so we actually became, just by that necessity, but also became real common sense, we became a very property owner and neighbor-oriented management company. Guests were secondary to our ability to protect the peace and quiet of a neighborhood and not let this be a problem in anybody's neighborhoods. And I just felt like, that could be used against us someday. So we need to be good citizens. They didn't really ever enforce their TOTs, but every one of our properties always collected and remitted TOT, paid it on time, and it was a guest thing, so it wasn't really coming out of our pockets. But I wanted to be a good citizen and really set an example for how big of a positive of a contribution we could be to the local economy and help locals and visitors alike. And so, but there was always this thing in the back of my mind, it's like, there's something's going to happen. I don't know why, but maybe it's just my business mind, just always watching for risks. But but when that came and how quickly it came was definitely a surprise because of how quickly it came.
And are you watching this now play out over multiple destinations around the world and thinking to yourself, I know what they're going through?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that slide you showed this morning at the keynote was just, yeah, the smugness of like, oh, we're in a resort town, we're going to be fine. Next thing you know, she's pleading with these people, and it's going to fail. I mean, I guarantee it. I mean, at least in Santa Barbara, it just falls on deaf ears. There are conversations going on in the background, and we have no idea what it is. And I've learned a little bit about the backroom politics of our town during the course of it, so I'm kind of a sense of it. But no, the citizenry rarely really has a lot of voice in this.
I'd love to play that soundbite from Ashley Kubison.
Well, first of all, if you don't have these problems, either you aren't paying close enough attention or you will, and they just haven't surfaced yet. I mean, the reality is the regulations, those conversations are happening behind the scenes until they've all of a sudden come out into the public square. And at that point, it's oftentimes too late because minds have been made up and ordinances have been drafted and things are moving forward. And all of a sudden you're getting hit with a train and you're thinking, well, what just happened? So like I said, if you think you don't have these regulation issues, you're not paying close enough attention.
When you start paying attention, when you realize there are conversations taking place, what is your first assessment move? Do you identify the stakeholders? Are you identifying specific people? Are you trying to mobilize a group? Like, what was your first move?
It was to organize the people that had interest in the industry and to try to create a unified story to the city council, promoting the positives of it, admitting that there could be negatives, but also showing that there could be ways to mitigate all of the negatives. And so started an organization. It was called Save the Rentals Santa Barbara. strsantabarbara.org became my other job. The leader of that, again, who no one else would do it. So I'm getting contributions. I got 1,000 contributors, raised some money.
How did you find those people?
I would reach out to all my competitors and I would send inquiries through VRBO to individual homeowners. And rather than being an inquiry, it'd be like, hey, this is going on in our town. Do you know that? Help support this. And did manage to raise about $40,000 through them to help fund some of these studies. I hired a respected local economist who does a lot of economic studies for various things, and he holds conferences and everything. And those funds went to fund a study that proved that short-term rentals were a very insignificant, had a very insignificant significant effect on the short-term rental market or the affordable housing market. And he did another one that actually proved unequivocally that short-term rentals do not increase the neighborhood nuisance complaints in neighborhoods in any material way.
And was that your very clear ask when you reached out to these people? You said, this is something we need to be concerned about. An economic impact study is our first best move. Will you donate to creating that economic impact study?
I didn't really go that specifically on it. I just said we need to promote the fair regulation of short-term rentals in this town. It's like, you call it the Wild West, even though it's not that wild, but we need to work with the stakeholders, everybody, and address these concerns they have and create something that works for everybody.
And on average, what was the response you got from these cold reach outs?
It was about a 5% response, there were some Rainmakers like me, though, too. There was a guy, how Airbnb kind of has a local community host kind of leader. That guy did, join up. And so he was able to bring the Airbnb crowd in, which wasn't really our crowd. We didn't advertise on Airbnb at the time. And so he came in. That was good. He actually ended up running for city council and losing, sadly. And then just a few of my colleagues, I tried to get my colleagues involved, and they were involved from a participation standpoint. There was no economics, not much economics. A couple of them did. And immediately started reaching out to the big players like HomeAway and VRBO at the time. I think it was even pre-acquisition. Might have been right after. But
and who are you reaching out to? Their public policy people?
Yeah, Matt Curtis, I think was his name. He's a big industry advocate, and he was head of their public affairs, government affairs division at that time. But kind of fell on deaf ears. So he was really great to talk to and always was supportive, but couldn't get a dime out of HomeAway because of that. I have no idea. I mean, that's what was so bizarre to me. These big players who have so much at stake because they run up and down the entire coast of California, and Santa Barbara's a lucrative market. It's like, hey, help us fight this. This was pre-lawsuit. So HomeAway did do one thing. They did fund a study that showed the economic impact of short-term rentals countywide in Santa Barbara. And the number came out to $471 million a year in actual economic impact. And I was astounded. I took that to the city council, right? And I was like, look at this, And
if people from the OTAs are listening to this, what do you want to say to them?
Watch the Rainmakers, watch the Avengers that are trying to make a difference and help our industry. And support them, Of course, you can vet them. You can see if they're legitimate or if they're charlatans. But, we were nothing but legitimate. I don't have time for this. I didn't want to do this. I'm the accidental activist, right? It's like I got way better things to do. But I knew But what I really do is what I must whenever I have to. And so that's what I want those guys to know. There are Rainmakers. There are people that are willing to fight this fight on your behalf. So back them up. OTAs, people out there. And podcast land.
You've got this group now of people, 5 out of every 100, who are saying, okay, I'll help this cause. I might give some money or I'll help organize. Mm-hmm. You've got this organization, but you are just stepping on the pedal and moving things forward. You're creating your economic impact studies. Mm-hmm. Are you holding meetings?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
In person?
Yep. Did a couple of those. Again, they're hard to organize, hard to do this, but we had one, and we had about 40 attendees, which I was happy about. Okay. And that was some encouragement. But what happens at meetings, right? There's a million great ideas, and one of my little fun techniques as a CEO is like someone comes up with an idea, I'm like, great, implement it. Because then everybody just freezes like a deer in headlights. Like, oh, wait, I didn't even have to do anything. I just wanted to say something. And so that's really what happens again. You got a bunch of people, and there's some fabulous ideas, and as soon as you start delegating, it's just 1 out of 10 might do what they say they're going to do. But
so are you then thinking to yourself, I'm kind of herding cats to a degree here. They're not all ready to step up like me. I'm going to do this, at least lead by example?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what was the next development?
Well, it was, in spite of all of our efforts, in spite of the, and by the way, anybody that's listening should also that's interested in this issue, go to www.strsantabarbara.org. STR is Save the Rentals, santabarbara.org, because there's a ton of research, there's draft of a fair regulation, there's all those studies I just talked about are in there. There's great material for anybody that's advocating for short-term rental regulation in there. And so we did all that and tried to convince the decision makers, tried to share it with as many supporters as we could. And And as I told you earlier, it just fell on deaf ears, and the city council 7-0 shut it down. And just fell swoop, city attorney blessed it, said, "Oh no, we don't have to ask the Coastal Commission if we can do this. We're a city; it's not a development, and so we don't need approval by the Coastal Commission." And so they shut it down with one vote.
Your short-term rental business effectively disappeared overnight.
40% of it disappeared overnight. Yeah.
And you then pivoted what you could to 30-day rentals.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which was the only way to keep cash flow?
Well, yes and no, because Santa Barbara City is a part of Santa Barbara County. And the good news is the same conversations, but they're about 8 months later, were happening with Santa Barbara County. And the county was a little more astute and realized they did have to ask the Coastal Commission before they put a regulation in place. They developed a regulation which wiped out 95% of the short-term rentals in the coastal zone of Santa Barbara County. And I hired, matter of fact, I was talking to him when I was walking up the door here, hired the really powerful lobbyist in California who's specially connected to the Coastal Commission. And we started working on the Coastal Commission because we knew no matter what our county supervisors did, whatever they did had to then get approved by the Coastal Commission. But none of the activists that were anti-short-term rental in Santa Barbara County understood that really, really important detail. So they were whining and dining and schmoozing the county supervisors, and they got their way. 95% of short-term rentals were wiped out. They drafted this thing. They sent it to the Coastal Commission. And after hearing all of our stories, the Coastal Commission denied it, said, no, this is totally unacceptable. You got to come back to us with a regulation that'll work. So that was the background on all of our business didn't go away because the county of Santa Barbara coastal business stayed. And it still stays. They've not redone the regulation ever since.
Is the tip here that if you're in a destination that's vehemently against short-term rentals, look a little bit more broadly?
If you can, I mean, no states have the California Coastal Commission, which if you're against them, you're really screwed. But if you're with them, it's great. And so, that was kind of the angle that we were able to take. If we didn't have that secondary approval that was needed by the county before they could have implemented their prohibition, it would have been a whole different story. Yeah, it would have maybe required something else. But
so at this point, you're kind of in limbo, I guess, because you've got this looming threat. And
at that point, no, it's not looming. It's there. It's done. So we are managing to stay in business in the coastal zone of the county. Santa Barbara City business went to hell because all short-term rentals, coastal zone. And so we were, like I said, we experienced 2 years of 20% drop in business, boom, boom. And suddenly I've got half the business that I had before. And just feeling so wronged. It's like there wasn't a balanced approach. It's all we'd ever been from the beginning when we started STR Santa Barbara. And I got pissed. It's like I'm a freaking bulldog honey badger, man. I'm just like, okay, no one's going to do something about this. I'm going to effing do it.
And listeners, Theo looks like he's about to attack me right now in his chair.
Yeah, I just like, I didn't care what it was going to cost. I didn't care. It was time for justice to be served, and so, and I had this hungry young attorney, and in November of 2017, the enactment of the prohibition was effective January 1st, 2017. And I think it was like November 19th, 2017, we filed lawsuit against the city of Santa Barbara for a violation of the California Coastal Act.
Folks, this was Theo's final straw. And I've noticed that every Avenger has a final straw moment in which they lay the smack down and decide to go to the mats. And let me just tell you, this is ugly. They're pissed. They've worked hard. They've jumped through the hoops, but they believe in themselves and they believe in their rights. And if you're listening to this and you realize that your destination too is in danger, the only tip I can give you is to consider having your final straw moment sooner rather than later. These discussions are going on behind closed doors, and if you don't step up, who will? If not now, then when? The hungry young attorney. How do you find a hungry young attorney?
It was a son of a friend of mine, and I'd known his dad for a long time and had befriended him over the years too and gone surfing with him and things like that. And I knew he was a great attorney. I just knew his personality. He's just one of those like smart, good, aggressive kind of guys. Perfect personality for an attorney. And he'd never really been a litigator though, and litigation is what this is. And he had just brought a law school buddy of his up from LA to start a litigation portion of the firm that he was in. And he's like, Jason and I this is legit. We can win this. And I'm like, okay, what's it going to cost? He said, outside with appeal and everything, maybe $90,000. I'm like looking at it going, okay, well, that's a bit of a, it's kind of a big price tag, but let's do it. Let's go. All in.
And you're thinking to yourself, you're going to back it and you're going to rally your troops to help.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some offset. Maybe I knew my property owners, I could get them, to do something. And so I'm like, okay, if I even have to spend half this, that's going to be okay. Yeah. So we went for it. We launched it. We did our original motion, and that started in, like I said, November of 2017.
And explain the very particular angle that you took.
Well, because of the California Coastal Act, anytime there's what's called a development in the coastal zone, cities have to get approval granted by the California Coastal Commission. And in this case, the development was a dramatic reduction in the use of the coastal zone by travelers because they have eliminated an entire category of lower cost visitor accommodations at the coast. And the city was adamant that this wasn't development and they didn't have to ask the Coastal Commission for permission. And our case was no, yeah, you should have. It was this is clearly a development because it clearly impacted the quantity and intensity of use at the coast. And you should have. No, we shouldn't have. Yes, you should have. We're gonna do a demurrer. We're gonna cost you, Mr. Cracke, another $30,000 in defending a demurrer. Okay, we want every demurrer. Well, now we're going to do an anti-SLAPP motion, Mr. Cracke. I'm like, what's an anti-SLAPP motion? An anti-SLAPP motion is when Bob the farmer has Monsanto polluting his river behind his house, and Monsanto buries Bob with lawsuits, and he goes out of business and can't fight him. Anti-SLAPP is where it protects David from Goliath. The city of Santa Barbara was claiming they were David and I was Goliath, and blew another $25,000 of legal fees defending that, which we won. So finally, after all these obstacles they're trying to throw in my way and trying to bankrupt me, we got to the actual case, which was a violation of the California Coastal Act.
And how do you find the resources to pay for that?
Well, I'm older than I look, and I've been an entrepreneur since I got out of college. There's no Cracke family money, so it was like I got my degree, and I'm like, great, I'm starting a T-shirt company, Dad. He's like, I got no more money for you. So I built up a big business. We were shipping 100,000 T-shirts a month to tourist resorts to destinations all around the country. Squirreled it away. I was a thrifty guy, and so I have resources. And so it wasn't going to move the needle of my net worth substantially enough to not do it because it was just so right, and this business was so strong. I didn't want to lose this thing. Just whatever it was. I guess I was 8 years into it by then, and I love this industry and I love this business, and I didn't want to see it threatened. You're
passionate, and you were convicted in doing the right thing. Is that the right word? Convicted?
Convinced.
You had conviction.
Conviction. Yeah.
And you had the resources. You had the money. But for people listening to this that maybe don't have the resources available, and I think this is going to lead into our conclusion towards the end, but is the only next best step to reach out to fellow owners, managers, and stakeholders who benefit?
I think so, because you have to find the money somewhere, right? And it's not easy. So I knew I had a posse of 100 property owners. My pitch to them was, would you sacrifice 2% of 1 year's revenues to preserve your revenues indefinitely for the future? And I always did it in July or August, which is our peak months.
And how do you actually present that? On a telephone call?
No, I did a kind of blast email. It's like 100, and I'm the master of the presumptive close in my emails. It's like, if you disagree with this, please get back to me. Otherwise, it's going to happen next month.
Oh, wow. So you cornered them into making the right choice.
When you're paying a guy $15,000 that month in net revenues, let's say the property does $100,000. I'm only asking for $2,000, right? And it's not going to move the needle of his August revenues that much. And
the presumptive close.
Oh yeah,
I like that. So how many of the 100 people said okay?
Everyone. Yeah. But maybe like 3 didn't say okay.
So, but in that particular case, you were in an advantageous position because you controlled their money flow. So if somebody listening to this only manages 3 properties, let's say, what's their next best?
Well, you got to get support. You got to talk to your colleagues in the industry. I loved what I'm hearing at this summit in particular. The industry advocacy, the right to rent stuff, we're totally on board with that. We're going to be donating from every reservation to that cause. And there should be industry resources to to help local fights, So, and you try to do it with the diplomatic way, which is to go to the city council people and give them convincing arguments. That website that I shared with you earlier is full of stuff like that. The problem is, you don't know what in our case, our city is controlled by the Democratic Central Committee is talking about, and they had a firm stance against short-term rentals for some reason, probably because it was more than a practical thing, it was a political thing, because they really aren't affecting the supply of affordable housing.
So in the end, at some point were you able to demonstrate that most of these homes were actually just luxury second homes that people were using?
Yeah, that was we funded a study by a local respected economist, and it's on our website too. It's called the effect of short-term rentals on the affordable housing market, and when the fact was presented that the entire short-term rental business represented 1.7% of the entire housing stock in the county of Santa Barbara, which is one of the most expensive housing markets in the country. Thinking that if 1.7% increase in supply is going to move the needle on pricing at all, that's already a ludicrous assumption. Then the other one that they fail to remember is that these aren't immediately going to all go to short-term rental, or to go to long-term affordable housing. These are people's second homes. They use them throughout the year. So all they did was pivot to 30-night rentals because they still wanted to use their house in the winter as the snowbird or come out to Santa Barbara for vacation throughout the year. And so they just had to go to 30-night minimum rentals during the Prohibition time, and their sales dropped about 40%, like ours dropped about 40%.
And one other question on that particular angle. You just go and hire a group to do a study, and they produce the story that you want?
I'm glad you mentioned that because, no, I told him, I said, I was so sick after a year of hearing how short-term rentals were destroying the housing market. I got Dr. Mark Schneep, fabulous economist, professor from UC Santa Barbara. I said, look, I
actually just want to know.
Yeah, well, I'm so sick of hearing all these facts. I said, I'm going to pay you, and I don't care the outcome. If it's wrong, if it's against what my thing, I'm just not going to use it. But I just want to know, Right. And it was $10,000 to have him do his stuff. And sure enough, that's when it came out that when you really drill it down and you take away the properties that are used by owners throughout the year, and you then look at the value and what houses that we manage would rent, it's like 0.1% of the short-term rentals would possibly become affordable housing in the county of Santa Barbara in the face of prohibition.
And so then what metaphor does that report become for you in your fight?
Well, I thought it was going to be, cathartic and like, wow, we never knew Mr. Kracke, and so it just fell on deaf ears. They're like, oh no, you just paid some economist to do this for you. It's like it's an industry-supported document. Like, we're not going to believe it. And I'm like, could you told me that $10,000 ago? I would have really appreciated it.
And now, a word from our sponsors. We have on the line Sean Miller, the president of Point Central, and Jeremy Gall, the founder of Breezeway. Sean, when it comes to profit, the ultimate goal of any vacation rental management company, where does Point Central fit in that formula?
This type of technology can drive a lot of profitability by helping to shift work from reactive to proactive. So in Point Central's case, the way we bring this forward are through things like our HVAC analytics program, where we help property managers identify problematic HVAC systems before they trouble the guest, and so they can take care of them at a lower cost point, or things like our water analytics, where we can detect leaks early and help property managers go take care of those before they have the unexpected indoor swimming pool incident.
If you'd like to do a demo with Point Central, head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB. They're now taking on vacation rental managers with less than 25 properties, which is a complete game changer. Profit margins in the vacation rental industry are not glamorous. They're small and they are shrinking. Jeremy, when it comes to profitability, whether it's making more money or avoiding spending more money, losses, how does Breezeway fit into that?
The hard work that goes into property management usually results in, quite a lot of expenses, right? There's a lot of operating expenses that go into this. Most folks aren't in a position, the way the market is now, to just reduce the amount of work that they're going to be doing. They're actually doing more work. So with Breezeway, with efficient task management, you can optimize the work that you're doing and you can open up opportunities to do more work. That can sound scary to people, but the idea of more work is tying that work to property managers can keep 100% of that service revenue, which can really change the game on your profit margins. Things like early check-in, late checkout, really timing and understanding, optimizing how your contractors or your staff are going to be able to go in and turn over properties can open up that opportunity for more service revenue or service engagement through messaging, where you're actually offering more services and opportunities with guest services.
If you'd like to do a demo with Breezeway and get free implementation valued at $1,000, head over to breezeway.io/VRMB. So where do you pivot to next?
Well, again, you try everything. Diplomacy has failed. That's when I had to sue him. It's like we did that. So there was a small component in the county more than the city that this is destroying the character, the fabric of our neighborhoods. These party houses, which, again, they're not.
Were there any party houses?
There were maybe one. And again, there's rules that prohibit those from happening. They're already in place.
And my guess is that you guys were yourselves looking to clamp down on them and get them.
Well, we found a very consistent demographic. If there was groups of adults in their 20s, it was going to be a problem.
Okay.
So we became slightly discriminatory against party groups coming in, and we just we'd guide them towards the more appropriate properties that weren't in quiet neighborhoods.
And would you turn on any irresponsible hosts?
Like tell them, hey, you're hurting the industry kind of thing?
Yeah.
To a degree, there's not much you can do, It's like, again, one reason I have so much peace of mind is that I realize I can't control anybody. So you try to lead them the way and then just hope the best happens. But
sure.
Yeah.
Diplomacy has failed.
Yes.
You tried doing it the right way. You're more entrenched now in this fight than ever. You're deeper financially than you have been thus far. So are you just saying to yourself, okay, now we got to take it one step further? Mm-hmm. And what does that look like?
Well, I was exploring legal remedies, and there's several that we thought we had in our pocket. One being what's called equitable estoppel. By the way, I'm an amateur lawyer now, so I know way more about the law.
If you're making up words on me.
Yeah, I know, way more than I ever wanted to know. But this was the city had been condoning this action for decades, right? They were collecting TOT, they were encouraging people to get business license and, be contributing to the taxes, and then they suddenly stopped that. It's like that's kind of like a property rights thing and a city kind of taking angle, but it turns out that that's very hard to win those kinds of cases. The courts generally rule on the side of the cities in that case, and we had a couple other constitutional property rights kind of ideas that were pretty too arcane to really get a lot of traction with. And then this Coastal Act violation idea came up with. I don't know how my attorney, where the source of that idea come. I don't think it was original, but it was original that he thought of it in our case, and that's when because I'd been already exploring these other options with him. He's like, I think we got one that's going to work, and we explored it, and it was like, wow, yeah, I think you're right. The key to it is convincing the court that what the city did was development and that it needed California Coastal Commission approval.
And listeners, this is one big takeaway for me from Theo's learnings. The property rights angle and other kind of archaic angles typically side with the city. So get creative with your problem solving. Think outside the box. Find young, new thinkers who can come at this problem in fresh ways. And remember, there's no man on a white horse coming in to save you. It starts with you.
So we went for it. And in November of 2017, we filed suit against the city of Santa Barbara for violation of the California Coastal Act.
A number of years of fighting this, and finally you're making it very formal in court on behalf of all your colleagues.
It was weird. It was like, it's also my hometown where I've been for 40 years. I love my town. I don't want to sue my town.
You get calls from friends?
We do. Well, a lot of the most of it was all supportive because they're my friends, and but yeah, it was weird. And it's like, why does it have to come to this? Why can't there be balance? Why can't there be compromise? I've spent a year sharing with you ways we can do this. It was just like, no, we're just shutting you down. You're wrong, Mr. Cracke. It's like, we don't care about you. We don't care about your industry. We don't care about anything. It's other than, this idea that you're somehow affecting the supply of affordable housing, and it makes us look good as local politicians. So, you're out, we're in. And I'm like, you're not. You violated the California Coastal Act, and I'm going to sue you, and now we're going to have to do this. And by the way, I'm a citizen of the city of Santa Barbara. It's going to cost the city what I was hoping would be only $90,000, but I'm going to help fund that. I'm going to help fund my own defense of my lawsuit because I'm paying taxes.
And are you starting then to get attention from press and stuff like that?
Yeah. So it came in, local press. It was neutral. Luckily it was good. I wasn't vilified or anything in the press. And
was that part of your strategy? To just really objectively state what was legal and fair and should be balanced?
Yeah, there's been the mantra from day one. We understand it's not been regulated, although the volunteers like me who are paying TOT and trying to keep the nuisances down, which are the only real issues associated with this, are trying to set a good example. But then, so it's like, let's just work something out, allow them, save the industry. The restaurants rely on us, stuff like that. And short-term rentals are better for the local economy because people stay longer and do things like go to the barber and shop at the grocery store. And it's not just the tourist-centric things that they do. They kind of live like locals.
You won the court case.
2 years, $525,000 later, I won the court case. Yay! The cost exploded. I don't know if I said this, but the city, threw a demurrer and an anti-SLAPP motion, and so that escalated my costs incredibly. And then just some of the discovery and some of the things they did too. And luckily I was able to recruit support from my own property owners. And so the financial burden, although significant, wasn't as significant as it could have been. And so, that was really the thing, is that it was just like, okay, we're all in, let's do this. And we started it.
What did you do the day that you won the lawsuit?
Oh, I was dancing, literally dancing like a white guy. I mean, it was kind of probably a sad sight to see, but my attorney and I were like partying that night. I mean, it was like, and he's a really good communicator and writer and stuff like that too. So we kind of did a press release. We did kind of the media victory lap, just like woohoo, and then I got right to work on the city council saying, look, you got it now. You got political cover. You lost this thing. Let's now do the regulation.
You could have just said, it's done. I don't ever want to talk to you people again.
Well, no, I wanted to reach out to them because all I've ever wanted is fair regulation. And so so I thought, great, look at this opportunity. Yeah, you lost. But let's just kind of put that behind us and let's collaborate and kind of make something that could work for everybody. And, in the back of my mind, of course, too, I was going, God, if I have to defend an appeal, I'm going to spend another 6 figures. And so there was that incentive for me too, but, and for the city, right? Why waste $120,000 of taxpayers' money when you got a homeless problem, right? But that fell on deaf ears. And within like 60 days, which was their time limit, 7-0, we're going to go for an appeal. We're going to overturn this because Mr. Cracke's wrong. So that was mid 2019 when they filed that.
Is it starting to feel like this thing never ends?
I was prepared for it, believe it or not. I actually think I'm kind of made for this because it's just like, okay, let's go. We'll figure out how to fund it and we'll figure out how to get through this. But let's go. I'm all in. All right, I'm not giving up till the very, very, very end. And so that was it. So we braced ourselves. We hired this great attorney out of LA to help, who's really involved with the Coastal Commission and Coastal Act law, and fought that for 2 years. And then in May of 2021, May the 4th of 2021, the headline was, May the 4th be with Theo Kracke, because the city lost their appeal to the lawsuit. And that was not the final nail in the coffin, because then I went back to the city council. I'm like, okay, guys, now can we stop and let's do some fair regulation? Don't take this to the Supreme Court. It's a 5% chance of them accepting it anyway to review the appeal. Don't request it to be unpublished because it's a really important case. It's case law. City council, one of them said, no, I won't let that happen. And literally, I think it was 25 days later, somewhere where the deadline, city attorneys announcing, due to the motion by the same city council member who wouldn't let that happen, caused by Michael Jordan, we are taking this to the California Supreme Court, and we are hoping to get it depublished also at the same time.
And depublishing would mean that it couldn't be used as precedent.
It wouldn't be able to be readily found by other attorneys who are looking for case law to support Coastal Act lawsuits against cities.
Because that's really important in this sort of world, right?
Huge. Yeah, because it's a game changer for every coastal town. They all had to wake up. Matter of fact, in the petition to the California Supreme Court, which did happen, they got what's called the League of Cities, which is a big civic organization in the whole state of California, out of Sacramento. They wrote a really compelling it was a pretty strong petition. I was actually getting worried, even though statistically it's a low chance that they were going to get it reviewed. And then the city of Los Angeles wrote a very compelling letter too. And for some reason, even though we got an amicus brief on the appeal, we couldn't get a letter from the California Coastal Commission on the review at the Supreme Court. So I was worried. My attorneys didn't seem as worried as I was, but I'm just like, because I was like so through this and so much money now out of pocket, and we had won, and we had to have one final thing that could have destroyed it all. If I had to go back to the Supreme Court, I would have had to heave another big sigh, trying to figure out how to pay for it. But anyway, 59 days after a 60-day deadline, the California Supreme Court came down, a 5-2 ruling. We are not going to review Cracke versus the city of Santa Barbara, and we're not going to allow it to be depublished. And that was it. And that was a really, really great night too. I mean, and actually when the weight of the world went off my shoulders, it's done. There's no further recourse and nothing else the city can do in this matter, nor can any real city in the state of California do in this matter. So it was like huge. It was
justice?
Yes, justice was served.
You've now achieved everything that your constituents, your colleagues, stakeholders in your region could have dreamed from a Rainmaker like Theo in their region. What are the implications to areas outside of your immediate region? Like, what's the ripple effect here?
Well, obviously up and down the coast of California, it's a huge ripple. It's a wave, right? It's like every city council, every mayor, every people that are thinking about opposing short-term rentals knows now they have to get approval by the California Coastal Commission of some form. And many do. I mean, that's the other laugh. Ventura, just to our south, great fair regulation. I cited in STR Santa Barbara. Goleta, the city to the north, great fair regulation. And so these intractable cities who just think that they're above the law need to pay attention to that. And then, I mean, will it reverberate around other coastal states? I don't know, maybe, but they don't have the strong rule that the California Coastal Act brings to help support things like this. But I think that, so I think it's going to be a tougher legal fight maybe for all other people that are facing prohibition thinking in their cities, you know. I've never changed my opinion of fair regulation. Fair regulation is bringing all stakeholders to the table, working on facts, real evidence, real facts. Is this really a problem we're solving, number one, which it wasn't in Santa Barbara. But, if it is, even if it's perceived, and then, find all the stakeholders, see the pros, see the cons, and just work something out that satisfies everybody. And, as we all know, perfect mediation is when all parties leave equally dissatisfied. And that's kind of, what I was kind of hoping it would go. We probably wouldn't have gotten everything that we wanted, and the city probably wouldn't have gotten everything they wanted, but we would have had a workable framework. We'd probably be contributing $2-3 million a year to TOT revenues in the city of Santa Barbara by having something like that there. And it's still, the opportunity is still there. I mean, that now they have no other option than to regulate it in the coastal zone. They've still completely prohibited it outside of the coastal zone. They've reluctantly admitted that they now have to go back to how they were before the prohibition, which was requiring the TOT and doing that. And so that's how it is right now. And at this point, I just hope it just stays like this. I mean, I'd love to see regulation outside of the coastal zone, but I don't see any path to that, knowing the city council that we have. And so I think just let us do our business in the coastal zone and we'll be good. Be the Rainmaker, because no one else is going to be. And if you have two, even better. Start there. You don't just heave that sigh, take on the fight, because your business is at risk. The whole industry is at risk by this kind of behavior by city councils. And so you have to just don't think that someone else is going to do it. You've got to be the one that can do it, or thinks they can at least. And then of course reach out. Then find every resource you can. Find the right to rent people that can maybe throw some money your way. Find the big players who can, And I will give a shout out to Airbnb, who did contribute to us, so that was great. They were significant towards the appeal, so they weren't there in the beginning, but they saw how important it was as the appeal came along, so that was great. And but if you're a big player with a big stake in any market, step up, contribute. So I think that's my takeaway. You can do it. You can fight and you can win. If anybody can fight it, anybody can do it. Trust me.
Theo is a rainmaker indeed. Upon reflecting on this conversation, I'm realizing that unfortunately, vacation rentals in every destination are going to require many more rainmakers. And okay, maybe not Theo level rainmakers. Those folks only come along once in a while. But the independent owners and managers who are in this business because it's their passion. The accidental activists who are suddenly confronted with a problem. The people who are smart enough to strategize and sink their teeth into something difficult and to resolve it fairly and reasonably with a level head and maybe even with a smile. I think most of the people who listen to the Unlock podcast are rainmakers in this sense. Is this your calling? Maybe you're ready to join or donate your destination's advocacy efforts. Maybe you need to be the one who starts it. Maybe this episode is the nudge that you need to show up at the next city council or reach out to that Vrbo or Airbnb representative and ask them for support. Advocacy is one of these unglamorous requirements of being pioneers. And if this harsh reality resonates with you, consider joining us along with 1,000 other independent avengers attempting to solve the industry's toughest and least glamorous problems together. You can sign up at vrmb.com/join. And portions of this interview will also air on the premiere of Season 2 of the How to Save Your Vacation Rental Business podcast, hosted by Dana Lubner, this coming week. It's all about fair regulation, what that means, and what you must do to achieve it. Until next time.